Hello team and welcome back to Sunday Vibes. As you can see, we are in the pub once more, but no Joseph Tomlinson. The guy is taking some well-earned holiday. So joining us instead, well, you've been here for the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, you're joining us.
You've taken my bit.
You're joining us.
It's Zach Tellap, it's Patrick Van Straan and your guest, Chris Hamill. How are you boys? How's your week been, Zach?
Yeah, good, thank you. Played against an ex-Champions League footballer on Wednesday.
Was it humbling?
We lost 9-4.
Who was it?
Cannot remember his name. He played, I think.
Huge star.
He played in. He won the Israel division and played in Turkey. But he was ridiculous, super strong, and they definitely took the pedal. Took their foot off the pedal at 5 and up. So
talking of super strong blokes, how are you? Guns?
I'm very good, thank you. Did you get this professionally lined up, by the way?
I got a haircut yesterday. Went for a taper fade instead. You know, there are different things with tapers. It grows back really quickly.
No, you got the beard done too.
Yeah, they did the beard. But he took off. He went like that, and I was like, I think it looks not too bad. Not too bad.
Sometimes it's too. You know what? You want it lined up, but sometimes it's
a bit too
neat,
lined. Yeah,
and then you're just like,
I'm in agreement.
You look like a sort of like George Michael tribute act, and you're like,
I wouldn't know.
Exactly.
I've never been able to grow a beard. But how are you?
You've got the kind of natural.
I
guess Guy Fawkes.
This is good.
Like,
you know what? When I went to Paris last week, which is why I wasn't here, this was very in. My facial hair is very European. I found my place.
I thought you were saying like you were like the Pancho Villa, like.
No, but I've seen Miles Teller in Top Gun as well. I might flesh this out.
Oh, do it.
Maintain it.
Do it.
Get it nice and thick. Right, let's move on to the football because that was a really long intro. Whenever I present these shows, they go on for about an hour and 10 minutes, and this is why. Right, okay. So the topic in hand today, I asked what club is winning the transfer window so far on Twitter, and we got a lot of different answers from the fine people at home. We're going to go through some of your responses, then make our own choice come the end of the show. Let's kick things off with Charlie Parthay Muller's suggestion of Bayern easily. 3 great signings for the present and the future. Now, we all know they've spent £52 million on Mane, Gravenberch and Mazraoui, while selling or releasing 3 first-team players, recouping about 10 mil in the process. That was Mark Roca, I think they got a fee for, who they somehow made 2 mil on, despite the fact he's played like 6 games in the last 2 years. Let's start with Mane then. What did you make of this sale when it happened?
I'm fine with it. Like, he wanted to leave Liverpool. He wanted a huge wage to stay. Liverpool were happy to let him go, and clearly by signing Nunez, they made clear we're kind of all right with this happening. I think this worked out quite well for them. I mean, really, Liverpool probably wanted to sell somebody last summer for big money, but obviously because of COVID, only ended up being able to sell somebody this summer for significantly less than they'd have wanted. But it's not an issue for them. For Bayern, it does kind of feel like a move made with one eye on Lewandowski going out the door. And whatever Mane is, and I think he'll be great in the Bundesliga, it's very unlikely that he's going to contribute at the level of Lewandowski. It's just almost impossible for anybody to. It's all right. Like, I think it's a good signing. I don't know. I think it's a bit strong to say Bayern's business, like, one of the best in this transfer window. Like, paid about 25 million for Gravenberch. Like, not huge on that. Mazraoui on a free, yes, that's good. But they've lost Zula. They could yet lose Gnabry if they're not able to lock him down to a new deal. They could lose Lewandowski. Overall, I'd say that is the squad getting broadly weaker rather than better. Now, it may be better suited to Nagelsmann's purpose, which could make them better overall, I suppose. But I would not argue that they've really upgraded the squad if they lose those 2 players. That to me would be kind of par.
Now, you said you weren't keen on the Gravenberch move. I think
I like it. I just think it's a lot of money.
16 mil. I think it's rising to 21. Do you think that's too much money for one of the sort of the jewels in the crown of this Ajax side that's just won the Eredivisie?
Well, what I saw reported was 25. If it's 16 with add-ons, then that's much better. I think that's kind of okay. I mean, there have been a lot of crown like jewels in crowns of Ajax sides over the years.
There's one every year.
And unlike some of the others who've really excelled in the Champions League as well, Gravenberch hasn't done that, and he's extremely young. I do think that he's going to be a good signing for Bayern, but it's not a slam dunk by any means. And Bayern kind of need midfield reinforcements now. It feels like they've been light in midfield for a while, and I think that's why they're continually linked with guys like Konrad Laimer. But Sabitzer could go as well. I mean, it just feels like a lot of turnover is happening in one summer, and I think if Lewandowski goes, and if Gnabry went, then those are 2 huge downgrades, and I don't think Mane fixes that. I think Mane is a good inclusion, but I don't know if I don't think anyone contributes at the level of Lewandowski, frankly, in this Bayern team.
Yeah, agreed. What do you make of the Mane deal then? Before we talk a little bit more about where Gravenberch might fit in, because I do think he is an interesting acquisition. I am scratching my head over it a little bit, but yeah, Sadio Mane is that.
Overall, I think both clubs are pretty happy here, and the player, like all three parties involved, I think can come out of this with their heads held up high. Like he got to the final of the Champions League last year. Obviously, didn't end up winning it, but he's been a great servant to them. He was really the guy that kicked off the Klopp era for Liverpool now, and to replace it with someone like Núñez, who, whilst I do think is expensive, is still a decent deal, especially when you consider they've already got a Carvalho coming in. They've still got Harvey Elliott there. They've got Jota. They've got so many players that can kind of fill into those positions. So Liverpool getting a decent fee as well. Like they finally reached that figure that they wanted to get. I think originally Bayern were like just about touching 30 million, and now with the actual fee with the possible add-ons, I think Liverpool will be pretty happy with it. I think overall everyone's pretty good, and for Mane as well, like to go and try another league, I think it's pretty interesting for him. As I said, I think, as Pat said, I think he'll probably do pretty good. And in terms of the Bundesliga, like it's one of the first signings in a long time where they've got a guy that is kind of in his prime and leaving the Premier League to come to the Bundesliga. Like the last time that happened was maybe Sane a couple of years ago. So I think overall, I think the league itself will be pretty happy as well. Yeah,
they have been celebrating it over in Germany as sort of a big coup because, like you said, not had a player at the peak of his powers come over there for a little while. Gravenberch then. Now, where do we expect him to slot in? Like he mainly played in that double pivot, didn't he, in Ajax's 4-2-3-1 last season. Now, Bayern also played a 4-2-3-1 last season, so you'd think, okay, is he going to contend with Goretzka for a position? Goretzka's actually only put up 2,000 minutes once for Bayern, so his fitness, despite being built like a brick house, is sometimes in question. Joshua Kimmich next to him, pretty much untouchable, one of the most complete footballers at the club. Like, is it as simple as that? Or do you think some of these signings maybe facilitate a change of formation, or they're starting to think about, trusting Nagelsmann with that 3-4-3 they've not historically played?
I have no idea what formation Nagelsmann wants to play. I don't think he's really made clear.
I read that was his favourite 3-4-3.
But you never know. Like, I mean, last season he ended up kind of deploying his wingers as wing backs and doing loads of wild. And to be honest, last season we'd have said if Lewandowski or Kimmich gets injured, they're in serious trouble. And this season Lewandowski might go, and we're still probably going to say, well, if Kimmich gets injured, they're in serious trouble. So I don't think that Gravenberch really solves that. I mean, he can play in a midfield too, but let's be honest, he's a forward-looking player. He passes forward a lot. He's pretty creative. He's a good mover with the ball, but he's never really had outstanding defensive output. And that's why I think they still need another midfielder who can cover for Kimmich if he does get injured. That's my concern. Like, getting him in is great, but does he give something that Musiala doesn't at the moment? Hard to say. Maybe he does. But I guess I just think this is kind of a bonus signing as opposed to a signing that really changes, my feelings about whether Bayern can compete for the biggest trophies in the game next season, or rather the Champions League. They'll probably win the Bundesliga. But
yeah, kind of tidily fits under the subheading of depth, doesn't it? And I suppose at that price, if they've sold Rocker for 10, it means they've effectively got him for 11. 6 going on 15 or 11. I think that's absolutely fine.
And if Sabitzer is fitter and they do go and get Conrad Lima or someone like that, then it immediately becomes less of an issue. But for the time being, I look at them and I think, has their first team got better? No.
Well, I think their right-back slot has certainly got better with Mazraoui coming in. Benjamin Pavard, a solid, if uninspiring presence going forward, right? But I'd say potentially one of the best free transfers of the window so far, Jalab?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, they've actually gone and signed a right-back. Like, Pavard, as great as he has been, was never officially an out-and-out right-back. He was a centre-back that could play out on the right. He did it for France as well during the World Cup in 2018. So getting someone in like Mazraoui is interesting. It's also, they've beaten Barcelona to him as well, who are very keen for his signature. Obviously, Barca have their own issues with financial stuff. But overall, like for a free transfer for a guy who's only 24 years old, had a very good season, though his sample size in Europe isn't necessarily huge, so you can't maybe compare him to others. I think overall it's a pretty low risk, high reward scenario. And worst comes to worst, if in say 2 years' time you're still not thinking he's quite ready for Bayern Munich, you could sell him on and make a profit. Like overall, I think there's no harm done.
Yeah, I think that's what Barcelona were probably planning to do, weren't they? Maybe try and sign Mascherano free, sell Serginho Dest. They've been trying to flog him for a little while, haven't they? But I do think he'll become a prominent first-team member, unless they do go for a 3 at the back, and maybe then it'll be Benjamin Pavard, and like we said, Serge Gnabry in that weird right wing-back role.
But if they go to a 3 at the back, who are their depth centre-backs now, right? Because they're going to have Pavard, Hernandez, and Upamecano.
Nicolas Sula has gone.
So if you play all 3 centre-backs, then you've got... There was that kid they signed from PSG a year or 2 ago. Tanguy Nyanzu, yeah. Thank you, McCubbin, off camera. But that's kind of it, right? You're like, oh, okay, so we're playing all our centre-backs at once. It's pretty... I mean, it's pretty Nagelsmann-y. I'm up for it.
Yeah, it's ballsy. I mean, let's just go back to the Lewandowski thing just for a second, because I don't know if we discussed the fee being banded about. They obviously want 50 million euros, or that to be the starting bid to even entertain the prospect of him leaving. I mean, they could pay for most of their summer business by selling a striker, you know, albeit a great striker, but one who's approaching 34. What would you do if you were Hassan Salihamidzic?
50 million comes in, I think you have to say yes.
50 million euros, really?
50 million euros for a guy who's only 1 year left. Like, as great as Lewandowski is,
he's got 1 year left,
and he is obviously arguably the best striker in the world. But he's also caused such a ruckus. Like, he's basically cut ties off with Bayern Munich now. He's come out many times being like, I'm not going to be playing for Bayern next season. Even as much as the CEOs have come out and said, oh, he will be, whatever. They've got to, they've got to say that. But he doesn't want to be there. And I'm always never keen on keeping a player that doesn't want to play for your club, that doesn't want to be in that league. And if someone's coming in for 50 million euros, like, as you said, pays for most of your summer business, yes, you are losing someone who is so vital to the way you play and who does score 40 plus goals a season. But in the Bundesliga, like, they've got, like, as you said, Sadio Mane can play up top now. Like, they haven't got necessarily someone that's going to score 40, but it can be shared across. Maybe Musiala takes up a bigger lead in the goal contribution side of things, even though he's already been fantastic in doing so far the past couple of seasons. But overall, like, I'm always never keen on keeping someone that doesn't want to be there. And if someone's giving you 50 mil, like, it's not too bad for someone that's 34 years old.
No, his tone's not even been suggestive, has it? It's been quite incendiary. Right, let's move on to Inter Milan then. This is Civil Warriors 123's suggestion. It's quite a militant name. And yeah, Chelsea and Inter Milan have basically reached an agreement over a loan move for the 29-year-old striker, haven't they? He's returning to the San Siro.
Lukaku, this is,
did I not even mention Lukaku? Sorry, that's Romelu Lukaku. Yeah, £97.5 million, 8 Premier League goals. And he's back up the road, Jalab. Now, obviously, the two clubs have obviously agreed a loan fee totaling 10.3 million, and they're going to cover his wages in full, right? And he's had to take a 30% wage cut to even facilitate the move. How are you feeling? How are you feeling?
Off he goes.
I do think about, like, imagine being one of the guys at Inter Milan being like, we've just nicked 98 million here. It's ridiculous. Yeah, it's tough. Like, it's not easy. I think I've said it before about how Chelsea was meant to be the guy that takes Chelsea to the City and Liverpool level, and we were nowhere near that last season. He ended up being, I think, the top goal scorer with 15 goals, which, again, like, for a guy that you buy for 100 million euros, 100 million pounds, is nowhere near enough for what you're expecting. Again, as I've said before, I don't think it's 100% his fault. I don't think he fit the way Chelsea were playing under Thomas Tuchel. Like, the way, I think when he was on the pitch, Chelsea were trying to play as a target man with him, and that's never really been what he is, despite his size. Like, he's a guy that wants to run in behind, and I think both sides were getting a bit fed up of it. And it seems as if this is the solution. Like, I now sit here and go, play Kai Havertz up front. Play Kai Havertz up front. Like, this is a guy, again, we bought the season before for 76 million quid, I think, maybe a little bit less, maybe a little bit more. And again, you look, he's coming to his 3rd season, and there's still not necessarily the position for him to be playing unless it's this striker role, which I think he needs to be starting in. But yeah, from Lukaku's point of view, I'm sure he's going to be pretty good back at Inter Milan.
Allegedly, he was in tears when the deal was brokered. So.
Sure. I mean, that just sounds like someone's put a tweet out and like someo's ran with it. To be quite honest, I don't know how legitimate that is. How do you find out that information?
He's the architect of all of this.
Yeah. But he's also he'd left his agent as well throughout this. Like, there's been so many different things. The interview that came up. There's been so many different elements of like just how this became the worst transfer in Premier League history. Like it's really, really bad.
Yeah, it's not just the worst because of his output. It's the worst because 4 months into the new season, he'd effectively fallen out the fan base and was grovelling in public, wasn't it?
What I will say, though,
entirely of his own making. Don't get me wrong, he was getting stupid criticism from some idiots, being like complaining basically about his ability. Like, you signed a guy who's 28, like he's a known quantity. You know what he is. You don't get to complain about what he isn't at this stage. However, he didn't need to do like this constant firebombing of his relationship with the fans, because actually people felt really good. Like, we were here talking last summer about what a feel-good story it was for him to be going back to Chelsea.
I spoke to him about what a feel-good story it was about him coming back to us.
I mean, it is extremely funny.
He literally pointed to me the seat that he sat in when he came from Anderlecht and was like, "I'm gonna be great here."
But now he's got to go back to Inter and he's got to rebuild his relationship with the fans there as well. Like, so I mean.
And the ultras have been pretty firm.
Even now, they're coming out
with their public statements, right? Aren't they saying don't roll out the carpet for him? Don't welcome him.
Fair enough.
He's got to win our affection.
I think that's completely fair enough.
And I mean, it's the first time, probably since 2004, that we've seen Chelsea back the manager over the player. And a guy where they've gone, okay, supposedly Bowley spoke to Thomas Tuchel and said, "What do you want to do here? Like, I'm going to completely do what you said." And it kind of seemed like their relationship between Tuchel and Lukaku wasn't necessarily like they were hating each other, but it was a point where it's not going to work out.
I mean, surely you'd prefer that as a fan, because when an owner interjects to say, "Listen, you need to fit this really expensive acquisition into your starting lineup by any means," it doesn't end well, does it?
And you also
for the greater good.
This
probably had to happen.
Yeah, though I do also think that managers have to face the responsibility of, like, if you agree to a player coming in, it's not then surprising if your owner is like, "Are you going to play this player that I bought you? Like, you said you wanted a striker, you signed off on this striker, you've got to play the striker."
Yeah, he's 100% not blameless. I mean,
I was quite disappointed in Tuchel.
Apportioned it, quite a significant amount of.
And he's also come out several times throughout the season and said about how, like, I'll make it work. Like, he's a guy who I can fit into my squad and all this kind of stuff. I can't remember, Chelsea originally went after Erling Haaland. Which, again, I don't know how that would have quite worked out if we would have been trying to play him as a target man compared to like how we have been with Romelu Lukaku. But in terms of Inter Milan, like, I think he'll do pretty well there. Like, the squad isn't necessarily that much different. He'll have his link up with Lautaro Martinez, especially now that Dybala doesn't look like he's going to be going there. And so overall, like, I think from an Inter Milan point of view, they've made a huge profit on him. They've got him back. He'll continue to do pretty well. I think the long-term plan is it will be a 2-year loan. He'll go on loan, but officially, I think in July the 1st, Premier League clubs can't now do 2 years loans. So it's going to be obviously 1 year loan, then another 1 year loan with an option to buy or obligation to buy next season.
Because there's no obligation currently.
No obligation.
Like, they can get
option.
him for a year and just send him back to Chelsea if they want, and then you're going to have to eat his wages for another 4 years.
Or hopefully what happens is he has a good season with Inter Milan, that builds up his stock again, and maybe other suitors come in for him, or he goes back on loan to Inter Milan the second year, and there's an option or obligation to buy them. But worst transfer ever, right?
You're going to be paying this off for years, and I think to some extent, like, the new owners at Chelsea will kind of say, you know what, this is a mistake of the previous regime, and whatever, we just eat it, but it's not our issue, we just move on. But they are going to be paying for it for quite some time. This is going to be amortized over the next half decade. Like, it is going to hurt you.
Yeah,
it's going to hurt you.
Yeah, it's not amazing, and hopefully if Michael Edwards joins.
What transfers coming in would help heal the wound then? Because obviously we've seen Chelsea linked pretty consistently.
Every player
with
under the sun. I like Raheem Sterling. I saw quite a few comments of people not too keen on Raheem Sterling, which I think
feel like
is
a super big need for you.
To a degree, I think Chelsea.
We've got 12 wingers,
but we also don't score goals.
Yeah, but then I would say that's not down to getting. We just need to exchange this winger for this other winger.
No, but I look at the wingers that Chelsea have at the moment, and even like Mason Mount technically counts as one of these wingers with the way that we play, and he's never going to get over any of the others. And the other positions is really like a Christian Pulisic, who we've still not seen the best of. Hakim Ziyech just doesn't fit the squad.
Hilariously, they've also been linked with Raphinha as well. Like,
it is crazy. Like, Raphinha doesn't join, but I like Sterling.
I mean, it has been reported as well that a verbal agreement agreement has been put in place with Jules Koundé after like an 18-month pursuit.
Sure.
Obviously, you're still interested in Ousmane Dembele.
Matthias de Ligt was rumoured to us yesterday as well.
Milan Skriniar, Presnel Kimpembe.
These are good.
Jimenez from Atletico Madrid. They make a bit more sense.
Sure.
Or maybe they're more pressing needs. But what do Chelsea need to do then, quickly, to turn the tide and not to lose the transfer window just by letting Lukaku go for pennies on the dollar?
I don't think we should bring in a striker. I think if Chelsea continue this, like we had a guy who was fine last season, Tammy Abraham. Like I really liked Tammy Abraham. I always thought he was going to be successful, and he's proven it again in going to Roma this season. And so I think if Chelsea went out again and went and spent another £60+ million on God knows what striker, I have no clue, to be quite honest. I just don't think it would be a roaring success. And so I think use what you've got. He is just never going to come to Chelsea, man. As much as I would happily take him, but I'd say use Kai Havertz there. Like build a way, especially with the way that Chelsea play. Like their striker is expected to be used in build-up play, and Kai Havertz is good at that, man. Like he's a guy that can take on a player as well if needed. He's a guy that can run in behind if needed. He is trying to improve his hold-up play, but he's hopefully getting there. And he's only 23. Like you can build something from this, and he has a good relationship already with Tuchel. Use him. You've then got Werner there if you need him in case there's injuries. Maybe you keep Brozier. You don't send him on loan. You don't sell him, and so you've got a depth. You're not going to be battling for the title. I don't think that's going to be happening next season. No. But if you can try and get a solid third place and really get closer to second first, I'd be over the moon.
Are you going to stick him down as your player of the season again, potential player of the season, Kai Havertz?
I'm going to take a very reserved approach this season with my predictions.
Okay, let's move on. Let's crush through some teams then, because we spent quite a bit of time on those first two segments. Kate Lick, the Golden Lass, has said Benfica. Now, obviously, the most interesting aspect of their summer is selling Darwin Núñez to Liverpool. They've sold £87 million worth of talent in total, actually. Everton Suarez also returning to Brazil for £12 million. And they paid £18 million for him a couple of seasons ago from Gremio. And he was valued at £39 million in 2019. So they've had to take an L on that one. Now, I know you spoke about Núñez while I was away, so let's not go over well-trodden ground. But I did want to pivot it slightly. I was asking you, Van Straten, do you think that Klopp will change the way he plays to incorporate Núñez into his side, or to maybe play to his strengths? There's been a lot of talk about maybe going to a 4-2-3-1 and playing a 10, so he's just got someone up there with him, because at Benfica he has kind of traditionally played with someone, hasn't he?
I mean, well, to be honest, when you're at Liverpool though, like Mo Salah is an inside forward with the emphasis on forward. Like, I mean, he's always been their primary goal scorer, meaning he's always getting into the box. So like it's never been as positionally kind of rigid as a 4-2-3-1 could be, or a 4-3-3 could be elsewhere. I wouldn't be surprised if we see them flex between 4-3-3 and 4-2-3-1, especially when Harvey Elliott gets fit again. He looked like he was really part of Klopp's plans at the beginning of last season before he got injured. And I think there's going to need to be quite a bit of rotation between these forwards. The thing is, Núñez, he's much more of a 9 than most of their other attackers, but he's still not a true 9, right? Like if you look at his touches, where he's taking people on, where he's making defensive actions in the Primera Liga, it's actually really been quite wide. You know, he is a guy who likes to start out wide and use his pace, his change of pace, to get at defenders. So, in a sense, I don't think it will really change all that much. It just gives them a different kind of presence. To me, what it will change, of course, is the fact that for the last few years, they've had at least 2 attackers on the pitch at every time who have a really long-standing kind of knowledge of each other's games. People like Mane and Salah, they are great players, but their game is elevated by the fact that they know each other so well that they know where they can find each other at different times. Well, now they're in the process of building those relationships with Diaz, with Núñez coming in. Jota was in and out of the side last season. So that could be not an issue, but it's something that Klopp is going to have to work on the training ground. I think we'll still see a pretty similar Liverpool side this season. Because also, let's bear in mind, Mane last year looked more like a striker than he ever had before. He hit 3 shots per 90 for the first time in his Liverpool career. He was completing fewer dribbles, making fewer pressures, fewer defensive actions. So you were seeing somebody who was really moving more into more of a conventional strikery role as he aged. So in that sense, I think it could be relatively fluid, and especially seeing as Liverpool last season were, in my opinion, the best Liverpool side we've seen under Klopp. They're better than the Champions League winning side. They're better than the title winning side. So they're in a very good position to be making this change. Yeah, I don't know. I'm quite intrigued to see it.
It is intriguing. I think that's the key word, because I think people underappreciate how complete a player Sadio Mane had become by the end of his tenure at Liverpool. Like, he was quite raw when he arrived, but super refined. You know, had that subtlety in his game as well. Was a technician as well by the time he left. And I think Núñez is a little bit raw. And you look at his passing numbers, and they're not the best. And he is an efficient creator in the final third. I think he got 9 assists the season before last when he was sort of playing off Seferovic. So clearly he can do that part of the game. But under Klopp, that number 9, like you've just established, hasn't always been an out-and-out number 9 and has been relied upon to bring others into play. Firmino, Mane might have been more of a striker last season, obviously still well within his capabilities. Núñez, I was thinking, might need a 10 next to him to help out with some of that stuff. And that's where we might see Fabio Carvalho get minutes. But I imagine Firmino might come back into the fray a little bit just to help shore up that forward line. And maybe we see Thiago Alcantara form part of that double pivot. And who? Ooh, Hendo? Fabinho.
I saw them linked to...
and who? Obviously Fabinho.
I saw them linked to Barella a couple of days ago, which would be very, very interesting.
It's an interesting one. Yeah. I've just written a script on 3 midfielders.
It's tough to get him, though, because he's just signed a brand new contract.
Yeah, I'd also say that it's not what I'd go for if I were them. Barella to me is like kind of more consistent navigator. Like, I don't think that's what they need. I think they need somebody in the long term who can replace Henderson and maybe cover Fabinho if he gets injured. Let's
move on to Arsenal then, suggested by Jer. He's put Arsenal potentially, caveated it. Vieira looks class. Does he? Never seen him play. And if they get Gabi, Jesus, Martinez and Raphinha, that would be
lots
superb.
of ifs, man.
Only lacking a CM/DM, but who knows? Right, first of all, Fabio Vieira, your reaction to that as an Arsenal fan?
I wasn't sure at first because I'm never like clear on which Portuguese guy we're talking about. They've all got the same like 5 names. But yeah, he looks phenomenal. I mean, his numbers are good. Like, he looks great on the ball. He looks like he can spot Odegaard. He looks like he could play in midfield, in a midfield 3 at least. And he looks like he's a creator from deep, which is interesting because Arsenal haven't really had that tool in their Arsenal. Like, Arsenal have had to kind of play through the middle, you know, short passing game. Odegaard is more of a conventional number 10 where he wants to be in front of the box. And actually all the numbers back that up. If you look at the lists of kind of the most dangerous player by zone in which they complete their passes in the Premier League last season, he was top for zone 14, which is that little
Sweet
area
spot.
right in front of the box. But it means that if teams pack it in there and you can't play through there, Arsenal are in a bit of trouble, especially when Tierney's out because they haven't got an elite crosser. Actually, Nuno Tavares is a very good crosser, but he has other issues. But so having a guy who's done a lot of creation from a slightly more reserved position is a good signing. But I think with Vieira, he's going to be somebody who comes in a bit, and it's okay if he doesn't land immediately. He's clearly a signing for the future rather than somebody who's expected to start every match now. However, this looks like being a very good window. This is shaping up to be a much better window, I think, than last one. And than anyone Arsenal have had for a long time. If Arsenal get Gabriel Jesus for the kind of rumoured fees, even £50 million, I think that's excellent business. I would not pay 60 mil for Raphinha, but if they do it and they have the money, I guess that's fine. Lisandro Martinez, this person has said, Lisandro Martinez, but we'd still need a CMDM. I think if Martinez comes in, he's going to play a lot of minutes as a CM.
For sure.
I don't think he's going to play centre back.
And he covers left back as well with Tierney's injury issues.
I think he'd be seen as a left back / central midfielder in the way that if we'd signed Zinchenko, he'd have been seen in those 2 roles. I think if you were to play a 3...
And bring back Saliba as well,
he's going to be... Yeah. Martinez might well play centre back if Arsenal kind of go to a 3 at the back or something. But he's not going to be a conventional centre-back in a 4, right?
And anyone that's watched him, even like more than 2 or 3 times, will know that he is good enough. He has that array of passing. He has that match intelligence to be playing that double pivot in the Prem. As a centre-half, physically,
he's not
maybe because of his...
He's good in the air for his size, but for his size, right? He's like 5'9".
Yeah, and it goes back to that Timo Werner line that we sometimes trot out, where he's like, I came to the Premier League and it's like land of the giants.
Oh, yeah, he was playing Brighton in the first game, right? And he was like, I was up against like Duffy, Duncan, Byrne, and I was like, Jesus
So that would
Christ.
be the inverse of that. But what I wanted to ask, like, I get the Gabriel Jesus move. I think that'd brilliant. I love Raphinha as a player, but don't quite get the pursuit of him, or like the fact that it's gaining momentum, the fact they've had a formal offer turned down, and it looks like Leeds are going to stick to their guns and ask for between 60 and 70 million pounds for him. I get that European football, squad depth's important, 5 subs next season, so people are going to get more minutes. It's going to be easier to convince people they're going to get more minutes as well in this off-season. But why the fuck would Arsenal spend all that money on Raphinha?
Well, I kind of agree. I think that for that sort of money, you could probably get somebody who'd be a better fit in the, if Bayern are open to selling Gnabry, a guy who's right-footed, essentially, and predominantly plays off the left, but could play as a centre-forward, would make much more sense than Raphinha, who wants to play off the right and cannot play as a centre-forward. He's obviously a very good player. I think 60 mil is a lot of money. However, if Arsenal have enough money to do that and all their other things, I suppose, who cares?
Make it rain.
But it's
Saka's nailed down that right position. That's what's a little bit confusing.
It's not hard to see, but he can play on the left as well. I think if Arsenal if Arsenal don't get Lisandro Martinez as well, maybe they'll say, you know what, like Saka's also going to be our backup at left back. But I don't think it's a difficult one, because I actually don't worry about the minutes. I think it's really easy to see how players get enough minutes next season. Between the league and the cups and Europe, I think there are going to be plenty of minutes. So Saka and Raphinha get plenty of minutes. Also got to bear in mind, Saka's played a lot, far more than you'd want a guy. Saka's 20. You think of him as, maybe he's 22, 20. No, he's 20. And he's basically played every minute the last couple of seasons when he's been fit, and he's always fit. He never misses a game because of injury. I literally don't think he's done that yet in his career, or he's missed one.
Yeah, I get it. That day will arrive.
With a guy who's that young, well, it's not even that. With a guy who's that young, you can't just play him into the ground relentlessly, or it will come back to bite.
Irresponsible, I agree.
It will come back to bite you when he's kind of at peak age. So yes, I agree. It's probably not the move I would go for myself, but I kind of understand the logic to it. I still think it would be a significant overpay. I really like Raphinha. I'm not that big a fan. I think there are bigger needs. I would probably get midfielders before I went for Raphinha.
When I see headlines saying he'd prefer a move to Chelsea, and obviously Champions League football is a big part of that, I get it more so because I can see a starting berth for him.
Can you?
If you change system, if you sell enough players, Tuchel is clearly hell bent on turning over that wide talent, isn't he? But Arsenal, I actually asked George, would you say Aston Villa came back in with a bid for Smith Rowe this season? What was it, 30 million last season?
Yeah,
say if they came back in with something a little bit more generous, say if it was like 40, would you sell knowing that brings in Raphinha? Because obviously you've got Martinelli on the left, you've got like Odegaard at 10. If Raphinha comes in, you've got him. He can maybe play across the forward line, Saka on the right, and your boy Nketiah or Jesus up top.
And we've got Fabio Vieira and Pepe as well.
So where does that leave someone with an extremely high ceiling like Smith Rowe? I'm just thinking like of a
Would
something
Smith
has to
Rowe
give.
move to Villa?
I don't know how high Smith Rowe's
arrives,
ceiling
basically,
is. It's hard to say.
What I'm thinking in my head is something has to give for one of those players.
Yeah, but I think but their hope is that Pepe will give.
I'm not even considering Pepe.
Like Pepe, you can sell and you can probably get okay money for him. You could probably get 20 to 25 mil for Pepe. Like if you can't get that for like a peak age winger, what are you doing? Like it's not that difficult to get that money. People get that money. Harry Winks is going to move for that money, and he's f***ing rubbish. Like so, I just think. I don't know. I don't think I'd sell Smith Rowe specifically to get Raphinha. He's not like a once in a lifetime opportunity. But if somebody came in with 40 mil for Smith Rowe, I'd really seriously consider it, because I don't think he's a true 10. I don't think he's a true winger. I don't think his ceiling is as high as Saka or Martinelli's. In fact, I don't think it's anywhere close to those guys. I think you have to consider that money, because 40 mil, there are relatively few players who make good on £40 million fees. So I think you'd be silly not to think about it.
Yeah.
But we must do this because otherwise we won't get Raphinha. Like, come on, man. I think Arsenal fans are getting into that thing now where there have been so many rumours about Raphinha, they become fixated on Raphinha and we have to get him. And actually at a certain price point you say, this is not a good use of resources. I'd rather go to Chelsea and be like, what would you take for Pulisic?
Yeah.
You know, that would be fine.
Yeah.
Or Hudson-Odoi. If we offered you 60 mil, do you reckon Chelsea would sell Hudson-Odoi?
Not to you. Not to you. As someone else.
Really? Because
yeah.
I actually think the bigger clubs are coming back round to the idea of doing business with each other. Especially if Sterling goes to Chelsea.
What was our last transfer?
Yeah, but they're going to realise that they have to do it. Like,
I
as
just
in,
think with
when you've got people on wages like they are, you realise you have to sell.
Because I think Chelsea are worried that you guys are building a side that will be challenging Chelsea in the next 2 years or so. Especially with the signings you're making, they're impressive. They're young, like they're going to hopefully come good. And Chelsea do have to worry about that. And I think with someone like Callum Hudson-Odoi, I think there's a few players like Pulisic, Callum Hudson-Odoi. They're two players especially that I think Chelsea could let go of. And in 2 years, the headlines are again is how have Chelsea let go of these two or this player? Look at him now; he's obviously one of the best wingers in the world. Like Callum Hudson-Odoi last season was good; he was really good creatively.
He's so
just
good.
Suffered with injuries.
He's so good.
He suffered really badly with injuries. Like he is someone who, if he can get consistent minutes and stay injury free, he'll have that Chelsea left wing on lock. Like that will be exactly his. Whether that's 4 at the back or 3 at the back, he'll play on that left side. It's just tough. He's constantly getting injured in different ways, or it's a hamstring, it's a calf, it's an ankle, whatever it might be. He's not getting any luck. As for Pulisic, like he's another one who I think can still become someone great, but it's just about whether it's going to happen.
So
at
would
Chelsea.
you do 60 mil for Raphinha?
No, I like Raphinha.
Neymar.
I think. Neymar. Thing is,
Oh,
I
Jesus
know
Christ.
it'd be stupid.
I know
it'd be so
answered.
stupid. It would be so stupid to bring Neymar.
I don't know, man. I'd kind of be up for
and
it.
for the money you
Yeah.
pay, but it'd be so much fun.
No, you let logic go out the window.
Oh, it'd be so
Neymar in the
much
Premier
fun,
League. I mean,
man.
he'd only
I
be
think
fit
Tuchel
enough
would hate
to start 10 matches, but it would be
those
blockbuster.
10
No, Thomas
matches,
Tuchel
yeah.
would be like, oh my god, this.
It would be so much fun though, man. No, but yeah, for Raphinha, like I think Raphinha's good. I think he had a decent season last year, but he was up and down throughout the season, and I don't think Chelsea need another player that's up and down. To be quite honest,
I feel like there's a lot of like kind of the right talent at the wrong clubs when it comes to the top 6 a little bit, and like, in my head, Raphinha as a Mahrez replacement at Manchester City made perfect sense, particularly if they're going to sell.
He's only got 1 year left as well.
Yeah,
I think.
1 year left, and I think they're quite okay with him.
Possibly leaving next
Yeah,
year.
negotiating to keep negotiating his contract to let it run down because he'll be what, like 31?
31, yeah,
next
something
season.
like
So I don't think they're particularly panicky about that. But yeah, it does feel like Raphinha would be shoehorned into Arsenal or Chelsea. Although if Chelsea do part ways with all of those players, then there is going to be room for him. Let's move on then.
But it does look like being a good window. It does look like being a good window
yeah,
for
for
Arsenal.
Arsenal, yeah.
Even if they just get Gabriel Jesus and like a midfielder after
If you get
Vieira,
Jesus and Martinez,
like
that's
that's
fantastic.
a pretty good window. That's a pretty good window.
What do we think about the João Felix to Manchester City room? by the way? Because I think he would just come in and probably replicate Gabriel Jesus'
I think
output.
he'd be great for them.
Yeah.
But I want to see Julian Alvarez. I really want to see him. I think he's a really interesting player. Can play wide, great dribbler, great creator, shot monster. I mean, I want to see him play, and I'm concerned he's just going to kind of sit on the bench for half a season and go on loan somewhere. So I'm not that bothered. But João Felix is a great player. Like he gets every year, but like this guy's still super young and putting up numbers. Like had a good attacking season last year.
Where's he going to play? At Manchester City?
Like it doesn't matter. He'll play somewhere. Like they're going to go deep in every competition.
Imagine a front line of somehow. I don't know if it quite works, but Foden, Felix, and Haaland.
Haaland's gonna get injured. He's gonna get it will happen.
Fine.
It won't happen. It can't happen. I refuse to believe that Felix will go to City. It also costs so much money.
Right, let's move on to Lakim's suggestion of Southampton quietly having a great window. Bissouma, Bella both brilliant young players.
Great strong.
And it's clear the new owners know what they're doing. So obviously Bissouma's a goalkeeper we spoke about maybe 2-3 months ago on Sunday Bias when we said we put him in our XI that are going to blow up next season. Actually, I think it's me, Matt. I think I took goalkeepers, and it was like he was like one of 3 names that I could possibly have put forward. 10 caps for Ireland already, even more so now. I think. Really good player. 9th best save percentage in League One last season. Good competition for places. Alex McCarthy might not be ready to go straight.
It's a big jump
straight away.
League One
But I
Prem.
think big upside for 12 mil. So I agree, that's great. Got any knowledge on Bella Chap? Maybe the Europe and the Daily Boys do. Yeah,
he's very young. He's extremely athletic. He's like a quick guy. He's not much of a technician.
His defensive numbers were massive,
but his passing is not tremendous right now. But yeah, like big pressure numbers for a centre back, and I think he's like well over 5 tackles and interceptions a game, which is pretty impressive stuff.
For Bochum.
But he might, it might be like Salisu, where there was a kind of a year where he wasn't really in the side much, and then he managed to move in. Whereas Bissouma is much more of a technician as a goalkeeper. So maybe the idea is, well, we can afford a rawer defender because we've got more of a technical passing goalkeeper. These are good signings. I think it'd be weird if the rumoured attempts to sign Nico Williams come true as well, because then it just feels like they've got right backs on right backs on right backs. But
particularly if they're going to pay like 15 to 20 mil for Nico Williams.
But apparently he's a good player. But apparently that's something they might want to do.
Fulham as well.
And Tino out injured still. So I mean, this is good stuff.
They still
is it their key area?
They need a forward so badly.
They need midfielders. They need somebody to link attacker, midfield, and they need a striker.
Yeah.
Hopefully, I mean, they might be hoping as well that Armstrong comes better second season as well for them this the upcoming season.
There's talk he might go out on loan.
Yeah, I mean, he had a fantastic championship the year before. He really didn't acclimatise to the Prem so far, but maybe he'll have a better second season. Losing Broja,
not the youngest as well.
Yeah, he's not the youngest. Broja, Broja only scored 6 goals for them last season.
Yeah, I think his performance was quite overrated.
Yeah. I don't think he was actually as amazing as people made out.
They should sell Ward-Prowse.
He was still important. Ward-Prowse City was another reason.
There were literally rumours going around that like people, certainly Villa were in for him, but there were rumours that they were going to be offered like upwards of 40 mil for Ward-Prowse. If you don't take that, I don't know what you're doing. Like, you have to take that.
They should make a position in football. They should make. They shouldn't. But I'm just thinking. Imagine they brought in like they have the kicker. Like they have special teams in NFL. They brought you just bring someone on to take a free kick in a corner. His price tag would skyrocket just for that.
They've also got Che Adams, haven't they, as well?
Yeah, Che Adams
they've got like.
I think
between him, Armstrong, and potentially a new signing, I think they'll be okay in that forward department. But maybe some sort of. And Elyounoussi, I think, is well capable of chipping in with 5 to 8 goals from the wing.
I don't think they're the best. They have definitely not the best window.
No, but these are the sort of signings we want to see Southampton make. They're sensible. It kind of fits in with how we perceive them to be in the past.
And maybe they'll do what they did last season, where they'll look into some of the academies as well. We've seen who had really good seasons and try like they did with Tino Livramento.
I do think they'll do an attacker.
They should.
I think they'll probably.
I think if they didn't.
They'll probably wait and see how the attacker market kind of like shakes out, and then look at some of the clubs like Chelsea and see who's not going to get minutes, and then go back. Yeah, which I think would be wise for them.
We might see that happen towards the end of the window. Then there's actually a few points in Atlakam's tweets. He said, current winners still City, and he's also said that Spurs window is very overrated. So a lot to unpack. Let's not talk about City because Haaland, great, well done, guys. But Spurs' window being overrated. Do we think that's?
Why do you think that? I think overrated a bit. I don't think it's insane, but I don't think it's terrible.
I think it's probably rated.
Bissouma's a great.
Bissouma's a good signing, yeah, and at the price it's good, but it's not like a game-changing signing for them. I don't think it really makes that much difference. Sure. Like the attacking signing, it looks like they're going to go big money for Richarlison. Okay. I think it'll be good under Conte, but I also don't think that's a game changer because he's probably still not even in their best 11. Like that's the thing, right? Like they need to improve their 11, and Bissouma probably goes in, but they haven't really done that yet because their attack is what it is. Like I don't know,
Jed Spence is definitely improvement at right wing back.
Is he?
Like he's better than
when Doherty played. Man, his minutes, his output was lethal.
I think talks on that have stalled as well. But
and Jed Spence's output was overrated last season. Boy, was it overrated.
I can agree with him being.
I think it would be good under Conte. I think it would be good under Conte, but this 21-year-old who's had one good season in the Championship is going to transform this Champions League level side.
Not necessarily transform it, but it's definitely with Doherty's injury issues, and obviously he's also not the youngest of players.
Yeah, it feels smart.
Emerson Royale.
Sure, yeah, I think the move's good. I just don't think it's like
future-proof in that position for 15 mil. Yeah, it doesn't elevate the side, but I think it's smart in the long term.
If we've done this based on all the transfer rumours, like the defenders as well, that they're looking to possibly be getting in. Like Pau Torres is definitely an improvement.
Yeah, if they were to get Bastoni, then I would be like, this is turning into a great window. But at the moment, I kind of think it's like Fraser Forster. Jed Spence hasn't happened. Bissouma has happened for a good fee. Richarlison might happen after.
I mean, I don't necessarily
kind of a weird season for Richarlison and too much money and big wages it'll be.
But in the same sense that you've said, like Matt Doherty was good at right back and Jed Spence might not be a massive upgrade. Ben Davies was superb in that on the left hand side of that 3 at the back role, wasn't he? Towards the end of the season, obviously that is where Bastoni plays for Inter, if memory serves me correctly, and the strongest part of his skill set is his progression with the ball.
You'd think that would be whatever centre back they bring in would probably play there, right?
Yeah, but
Pau Torres is the same.
So Bastoni comes in, like he'd have to put in a good shift to be a significant improvement on Ben Davies. He going forward, but in the short to medium term.
But then what we're saying basically is like Spurs are a good side and it's really hard to improve them, and I think to some degree that's true.
Do we back Eric Dyer to have another season like he did? Like maybe someone at the heart of that defence next to Romero?
They definitely need a centre back. Like they need a centre back. Undeniably, they need a centre back. I think they got Bissouma for a good fee. That's kind of it for their business so far. If they do end up getting a quality centre back, then great. But even Pau Torres, the rumoured fees are far higher than Spurs will want to pay. So I think that these are all sensible moves. I think with Conte there as well, any signing they make is probably going to work out because he's amazing. But is this kind of like a win the window type thing? Like I've seen Spurs fans like crowing about this window in a way that I do not understand.
I suppose in my mind I sort of meld it with the January transfer window as well. Like
I think that's the other thing.
Ben and Kulusevski, I think maybe that business was a little bit underrated initially.
Oh yeah.
And then maybe some of their stuff now has become a little bit overrated, but probably balances out, doesn't it? What if they end up getting, 40 mil for Harry Winks and Bergwijn? That's great. Smart money.
That's great. I mean, like getting any money for Harry Winks would be great. Bergwijn, they should be able to get a good fee, but they're really holding out for 25.
Yeah,
right, which is
I think Ajax have bid around 20, haven't they? So
yeah, I think they'll get it.
Well, they're trying to make their money back, right? How much do they spend?
They spent nearly 30, I think.
So
I think it was like 27, 28.
But
it'll be a fine window for them because the thing is, when you've got a manager like that, he knows exactly the system he wants to play. He knows exactly what he needs from a player in those things. Yeah. But like Spurs fans have been like, oh my God, we've got an Ivan Perisic. You're like, wow, 33-year-old Ivan Perisic. God, the football world cries tears to know that this player's gone to Spurs. Like, he'll be good for them. But again, it's not like a signing that you're like, my God, how have they managed to do this? Like,
game-changing signing is going to be hard.
Especially because they're frontline. Especially because they're frontline. You look at Arsenal and you're like, swapping Lacazette for Gabriel Jesus, that's a massive, easy upgrade. Whereas you look at Spurs, you're like, how do we upgrade this front line? Well, Harry Kane is probably going to get injured at some point, so it's really about improving the 10, 15 games he misses rather than like the team overall.
Yeah, I suppose their remit is how do we get closer to Chelsea? How do we contest that third place?
Because they're doing all right.
We're talking about game-changing signings, but the game feels rigged at the moment, doesn't it, with City and Liverpool? Let's move on to the final one then, and it is from Kevin, and he's asked. He's put forward BVB. I mean, I know we've spoke about Sula, Schlotterbeck. Adeyemi on previous episodes, so maybe let's not get too hung up on them. What do we think to the Haller move then for £31 million? 28-year-old Sebastian Haller.
It's all right. I mean, the thing with Dortmund, they create so many chances for their striker. Like whoever you kind of put there, and they've shown that throughout the years now, will be pretty good. I mean, if you can get Batshuayi performing as well as they did, like you can pretty much get anyone to do pretty well. And so. You've also seen as well, like without Haaland, Dortmund weren't necessarily that much worse off when he wasn't playing last season. They were still creating a lot of chances for their forwards. And Adeyemi is very, very young. Like he's a guy who is obviously going to be the long-term striker for them, and maybe in a couple of years he'll be the one that they sell on. And they've still got
Daniel Marlin, who are yet to see the best of.
Exactly, he at times was featuring on the wing as well, and so. I don't mind it. I don't necessarily think it's the number one transfer they need to make in the world or number one target they should be getting. But I also, if it's a deal that they can get done and they're happy with it, it's a different kind of striker as well to who they have currently. Gives them other options. I think it's a relatively decent deal.
I think it feels quite jarring because we're not used to seeing Dortmund buy people in their primes with the idea that he's just signed a 4-year deal. He's going to probably run down his 4-year deal at the club, and if he can get 10 to 15 goals every season, it's a success.
Yeah.
Is it just as simple as that? Like, do we need to look into the fee anymore?
No, I think it feels quite a big fee for Dortmund, but yeah, I think it's like really sensible because they're always going to get goals from wide areas. Marlon's settled after another year. Adeyemi will obviously chip in. Royce had a really good year last year. So I think they'll kind of say, you know what, like Aller gives us a very consistent creative point man who's going to be reliable for us and kind of give us a bottom level. And maybe Adeyemi lands and he's incredible. Maybe Marlon takes off this season. But they've done some other smart moves here and there. They got in Salih Özcan as well in midfield. Rumours that they might go for Raum as their left back as well, which would be a really interesting move. So I like the squad. The squad is going to be like basically future-proof. If Terzic isn't the guy, they can just swap him out for somebody else and they'll basically be fine. But like this isn't the only thing that would make me sad is if Terzic isn't good and there's an opportunity to win the title this season. That'll be frustrating because if Bayern are kind of working out how they play without Lewandowski or Kimmich gets injured or something like that, and all these guys land and they're really good, then there might be this like small window for for Dortmund to try and win a title. And if they end up wasting it on a manager who's not quite at the right level, then...
Shameful.
So let's pick our best clubs then, and then we'll go into quick fires very, very quickly. So, Zach, best window?
God. Bayern?
A tentative
like
Bayern.
yeah.
And this is one way you're not picking it for the rest
Sure,
of the
The
of
long
off-season. You
time
can
left.
change
Yeah,
it.
long time.
Yeah.
At the moment, I like Bayern's transfer, sure.
Dortmund, I think. Dortmund, I think. But if those moves come off, I do think that potentially Arsenal will be up there.
Yes,
I'm
if
not
you
sure it's
get
going to
them,
drastically change their season.
Yeah.
They're still going to be like, maybe they get 4th rather than 5th. So who
If
knows?
Arsenal have their dream
Yeah,
window,
yeah, that's a good point.
that is
I could
pretty
probably
much
put
up
Arsenal
there,
as
isn't
well.
it? But I also think people like Leeds need a bit of a shout. You know, Celtic, if we get Jota on a permanent.
Brilliant.
I would probably go for from who we've discussed, I think it's pretty much neck and neck. Arsenal, Bayern at current.
And it could be a very different video come the end of the window,
Yeah,
man. Like,
absolutely.
we know what the transfer season's like.
Absolutely. Right, quick fires then. One from Pink Greg on the Discord. Which transfer is most likely to flop? Pretty negative.
Anyone
negative
that
chat.
to be honest, mate, I've got to a point now. Transfers. Anyone goes above 70 million quid,
Yeah.
you're going to be a flop.
You write them off.
Yeah, honestly, because it's
Right.
just so much like to get your money's worth of 70 million pounds, and everyone judges you on that first season. You need to be scoring 20 plus goals, and obviously normally you're a striker. If you're a centre back, it's a little bit different.
Look what you've
but I
done
think-
to him, Romelu Lukaku. You've broken.
No, but it's not just that. There's a lot of transfers. Like you think about the last transfer that was over 70 million pounds or over 80 million pounds, and it's hard to be a success.
That represented value for money. Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe like Virgil van Dijk was obviously fantastic.
Mbappe.
Mbappe, yeah.
Mbappe, I
really,
think, is the
really
only
good.
player who's ever gone for
For
100
three
mil
figures,
who's
yeah.
actually like paid it off.
Who's banged, yeah.
Yeah. So I just think
So I think
it's
Grealish
tough.
will be good this year.
I think it's tough. Grealish is obviously we'll see what he's like. But as for ones that have happened, I'm trying to think what transfers happened so far.
Have you got one? Can I always come back to you, Jell?
Yeah,
it
I
is
think it's
difficult
tough
at this
thinking
stage
about
of the
it.
season to
Most likely
pick
to
a big old flop.
What counts as a flop? I mean, that's the thing. Like if Nunez gets like 13 league goals, people will say he's a flop. But Mane got like 14 league goals last season.
Should we reposition it then? What transfer has happened that you don't really like? You're not having it.
What am I not having?
It just takes a second. You're just trying to go through all the teams and be like, it's this.
It's taken me so long. Like I've been off for a
Who's-
week on holiday. It's taken so long to get back into the swing of things.
Who've Barca signed?
Barca have done some.
Who've Barca
Yeah,
signed?
everyone's just
Garbage.
gravitating
Yeah.
towards Barca.
Yeah, some Barca
they've probably
signing.
made a mistake.
Real Madrid been
They are
pretty good.
idiots, though. Who did Barca sign? Barca have got in Christensen.
Well, not officially yet. It might not happen.
Sure.
It might not happen.
But
Why
like,
don't we just throw this one to the guys at home? Like, let us
Yeah,
know.
let us- yeah, in the
move
moment, I can't
that
think.
you least like, or you think is going to flop in the comments below and dig us out of a hole.
I literally
right.
hate everything
We're
Barcelona
gonna
do.
we're gonna move. Yeah.
They're so thick.
Let's move on to personal questions then. Is there anything about Barcelona in here for BVS? Sam from the Discord. Oh, the movie you're most excited for to come out, or that has came out this year?
That has came out. Come on, man. That has come out.
I'm
It's
reading
like
it.
you saying you've broke him. Like, what are we doing here?
I'm reading it as
people
is.
not study any grammar whatsoever. Come on,
I
people.
think I got a B in my English GCSE. That's as far as
Jesus
I went.
Christ.
Hey, start.
What movie?
With two English
I do
GCSEs,
want to
but-
watch B in literature. Maybe I got a C in
You,
language.
you ended your answer mid-sentence then to go back to the fact there is two English GCSEs, Lit and Lang.
There are two
I do want to see Top Gun. I've heard a lot about Top Gun. We were speaking about Top Gun before. You've just seen Top Gun. You like Top Gun.
I loved it, mate.
This is not sponsored by Top Gun. I don't know. Like I've actually not been that kept up to date with like a lot of movies that are coming out. If anything, I've been doing the opposite and watching films that came out kind of like 10 years ago or so, and been enjoying that kind of stuff recently. Like I remember a couple of weeks ago I watched Inglourious Basterds. Like that was fantastic.
Oh, what a film.
And I went through a bunch of Tarantino stuff. So I'm getting back into watching films and like getting back into series again, where I went through a period of like not really doing much of that. And I'm also then just watching Love Island. So balancing it. I'm
Watching
finding
films
a
is
good
a
diet.
winter activity for me.
Yeah.
Like,
I
you
can understand.
can't be
Or a
spending-
hungover.
I know I
activity.
just went to see Top Gun, but yeah.
Yeah, I've also kind of maybe I'm kind of maybe losing the love for films a little bit. I think like they are
Really?
You
At
have
your
to set
big
aside.
age,
Yeah, you have to
you've
set
had enough.
aside like it's to set aside that like 2 hours or like giving yourself 2 hours going and watch
2
it.
whole hours.
I've had
It's
enough
tough,
culture.
man. It's tough.
Zach
it's tough.
Jelleb, 2022.
Thor, Love and Thunder. Quite interested to see how that pans out.
Yeah.
It's just another Marvel, like to me, like the Marvel films.
I
Like,
was
they're good
quite-
fun. They're
I
good
was
fun.
quite-
But they're just like
Underwhelmed
Another
by
one.
the Obi-Wan Kenobi series, to be perfectly frank. You know, that was
Never watched Star
nostalgia
Wars
fueled
film.
for me. I was very excited by that.
oh,
He's got an answer.
Jesus.
Fast and Furious,
Oh my God.
F10, the end.
Can we end this?
We're finally seeing the end of how
Good.
Vin Diesel's family turns out.
Who gives a
Right.
Maybe his kid will now be driving.
We're finally being weaned off fossil fuels. No more,
Yeah,
no more
electric cars.
diesel.
Electric cars. I don't know. I'm taking the piss of that. I don't know, man.
F10.
I guarantee Joe is absolutely like rising
I still
with
stand.
excitement.
The first three are good fun, and they're good films. The first
The
three
first
Fast and
three?
Furious.
What are you
Fast and
talking about?
Furious
There's
1,
like
Fast
5
and
and
Furious
6.
2.
They're like the good ones. All the rest are dog.
No, but they're like just insane ones. Like the first three
Yeah,
are
but
like
they're the fun
legitimately
ones.
good.
No,
films.
that's stupid.
Tokyo
where they're like,
Drift is
it's actually
great.
seriously about driving cars fast. Like it's
but
much
they are
funnier when
good.
they're like, what if we like dragged a safe around Rio? Like, then you're like, yeah, I get that. What if we jumped a car between like towers in Dubai? Like, yeah, I assume that's what they do in Dubai all the time. Like, yeah, I think once they acknowledged it was stupid, then I was kind of more on board with it. When they were
Yeah,
like,
I
oh, it's a
can
really
understand it.
serious like film about the street racing culture. Shut
I
up.
I enjoyed those. Those are the ones that got me into it. And then now I'm just along for the ride. I'm part of the family.
Christ, no. When they added The Rock, that's when it got like watchable.
Do you remember one of my
When
favourite?
he cracks the cast off, he literally flexes the cast off his injured arm, and you're like, what's your injury? He's just like, oh.
I don't think he's going to be in F10. Him and Vin Diesel. Will,
Yeah.
fall
Fell out,
out.
didn't they?
Yeah.
A bit of a public spat.
And then he
no
put
one cares
Instagram. He
about
put,
Vin
and then
Diesel,
and then Diesel put Diesel. Like he's my best mate. Put an Instagram post being like, Dwayne, we need to put our differences aside and make
Christ.
the best
How
Fast and
is
Furious
this
film yet.
episode of
Virgin.
Sunday Vibes descended into
Virgin
celebrity
Diesel.
beef?
Shut up. I hate him.
What the film are you looking forward to?
I honestly don't
That's
know, man. I
Come
haven't really
out
thought about
or
it.
is coming out?
I actually don't have. Well, I suppose like the Knives Out sequel is due, isn't it?
Ooh,
Like,
didn't know
Glass
that was
Onion.
happening.
Yeah, that's happening at some
That'd be good.
stage. But honestly, I don't get to watch films anymore.
Is that Anna de Armas in that?
Yes, it is.
No.
Yeah, she is the first one. She's
Yeah, she's not in the sequel. Though.
Oh, she's not in the sequel.
Why would she be in the sequel?
Why not?
She isn't. Yeah.
Well, how would it work? Like at that point, they'd be like, "Hang on, you were in a murder mystery before. You're in a murder mystery. This time. You probably
You
did
did.
that.
That's
You
a,
probably
no,
did
it's
a
a
murder."
great sequel. She actually
Like,
straight up
Is,
murders someone in
yeah.
a second. Yeah.
Is Bondi in it? I forgot
can
his
murder
name.
Yeah,
me.
that's the whole
Jesus.
point of it. It's like
Okay,
he's
gonna
the
bring-
character
okay,
that goes
nice,
forward,
okay.
yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, to be
is
fair, if
old
any of,
Bondi
if
in
any
it?
of the others were in it, yeah, it wouldn't make sense. With his accent's so good in it. It's brilliant.
I don't know where we're at right now, but I think we should probably end it. End this
bring this to a
show.
close.
That is Sunday Vibes for another week. Thank you very much for watching. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel with notifications on, and watch.
My We Need to Talk, where I went through the 20 Premier League teams and said that one player they all need to sign.
So basically what we just did on Sunday Vibes.
Similar,
good.
All right, fair.
kind of different.
I don't know, a bit more review angle on this. All right, that's it. Bye.